So I'm going to start, just for those of you who are not aware, to just briefly cover what a National Estuary Program is. The Peconic National Estuary Program on the east end of Long Island is one of 28 national estuary programs around the country. That means we were recognized by Congress as an estuary of national significance. For us, it was in 1993, and we're authorized under Section 320 of the Clean Water Act. We are non-regulatory, non-enforcement, and not an advocacy organization. We're an organization that makes science-based decisions, and we work together in partnership with federal, state, local governments, the scientific community, nonprofit partners, and regular civic associations and community groups. And we're guided by a comprehensive management plan. This is a series of 35 actions that all of those groups that we partner with came together to decide are the priorities in the watershed. We're going to focus a little bit today on our habitat plan, which guides what we do in the realm of conservation. I'm going to go through this to look at our conservation projects largely in the past 2 years around aquatic connectivity, wetland restoration, habitat conservation, wildlife monitoring and conservation, and submerged aquatic vegetation. So I'll start off with aquatic connectivity goals. PEP has a goal of 242 acres in 10 years. That's habitat open to diadromous fish species with aquatic connectivity. We're currently at 203, and we're only in year 4. So we're very excited about that. This past 2 years, great strides were made in completing some aquatic connectivity projects. We didn't do this by ourselves. We don't do anything by ourselves. So the Forge Road Fish Dam was opened by the town of Brookhaven, upstream of the Grandable Fishway, which has been open since 2010. Upper Mills is the last remaining barrier between the Edwards Avenue, which DEC put in around 2016, to connect the Grandable Fishway in the main Peconic Bays to all of the habitat throughout the main stem of the Peconic. Last year also saw the opening of the Byron Young Fish Pads at Woodhull Dam, which opened up 88 acres of breeding habitat for diadromous fish. So if we look at these a little bit more closely, as I said, Grandable was installed around 2010. That was 26 acres. Upper Mills Dam is the most complicated site. We like to save the best for last. There are 2 municipalities. The Long Island Power Authority all have land ownership that converge at this point. So developing a land use agreement has been complicated and, as you can imagine, and exacerbated by the change in leadership at Suffolk County. So we are now re-engaging to educate new leaders about the importance of this site. As well, there is a USGS weir at this site, which is currently impassable as well. So a series of things converge on this site. We have engineering designs, we have permits. So we are ready to go to the next step once everybody can come together in agreement at this site. As I said, Brookhaven put in the dam at Forge Road in 2023 and DEC at the Edwards Avenue in 2016. And most recently, the Byron Young Fish Pass at Woodhull Dam. This was formerly just called the Fish Pass at Woodhull Dam. Suffolk County Legislature voted unanimously to rename this in honor of Byron, who's here today, who has really been the steward of this site for 2 decades, at one point bucketing fish up and over the dam, so that the run thrives today. And so we're still working to tweak some items at the site so that the fish can use it more efficiently, but we're very excited about the fish run coming up and through here. Okay, the video didn't play. That's okay. It was Byron's sneakers and some fish using the dam and going up through Woodhull. And then this year also saw the completion of a right siding of a culvert at Big Reed Pond in Lake Montauk. Again, we worked with Suffolk County. We got some funding to do this. That opens 45 acres of habitat. This was a place where we saw some remnants of a fish run. So now we'll be monitoring this a little bit more closely to see if and how it's used and what other amendments might need to be made in this area of Montauk. And so we'll move on to wetland restoration. Some of our bigger wetland projects are happening this year. We're very excited about the Agabonic Wetland Complex in East Hampton. This is a project that has also been an evolution of years and multiple partnerships. The Nature Conservancy has been working with local communities for years to lead both the town and local communities in East Hampton at several types of work in Agabonic Harbor. This is a 30-acre site. We've engaged with the SMART teams to restore hydrology using minimally invasive methods. So we're really not looking to dig out frag, bring in new sediment, plant some Spartina. This is looking at a much less invasive way of restoring this marsh. And that work is going forward now. Contracts are in place, permits are in place, not permits, sorry, but the teams are in place to start with the concept and any permitting that will be needed over the next year. The wetland restoration at Riverside, we're funding a 15-acre site on Riverside Park. This is an area that is designated as an environmental justice area in the state of New York. So we're working with local communities on a concept plan and the town of Southampton to see what they want to see here. They really need water access. So how can we accommodate that and restore this wetland? We'll be answering that question over the next 2 years with the town of Southampton. And Paul Stoutenberg Preserve in Southold. We're funding 6 acres of engineering, design, and permitting, and then the town will work to take that and make some upgrades. Again, this is largely a hydrology issue, so looking at impoundments, right-sizing culverts, fixing pathways for water to be able to more efficiently flow in and out of the marsh the way it needs to survive. Indian Island County Park, we are contributing some funds with Suffolk County on a 54-acre site. When we talk about projects that have been long in the making, this one really takes it home at around 15 years. Because this is a dredge spoil site, repeatedly sediment samples that came up were contaminated. So we see this around Long Island. This is not uncommon, but finding a solution to that problem took a very long time. But engineering plans and permitting is secure, and construction is getting underway as we speak. So in 2020, in our Conservation Management Plan update, we committed to targeting 250 acres of wetland restoration in the next 10 years. This brings us to 105 acres of wetland that is in planning, design, or implementation. So we're really excited about some progress that's been made on these projects as well. Meeting House Creek will be a stormwater wetland in the town of Riverhead in an area that is currently experiencing road flooding, increased levels of groundwater, and these things all converge off of Church Lane in Riverhead. So we'll be looking to make a stormwater management site here for both pollution reduction and some habitat value. We're very, very excited and really cannot applaud our partners, the Peconic Land Trust, enough for their vision of working with New York State DEC to acquire 100 acres of waterfront property. We should all just pause and think about the significance of that in today's day and age. Again, in Riverhead, in the Peconics. And so we're working with them to see now how we can support them to get those communities to the water. So we're looking at trails. We're helping them work with LINHC to manage the invasive species that are there, looking at what access means to people. How can we accommodate people in all methods that, or in all ways that the word access implies. So we're super excited about this. We will continue to work with them and fund them to do some work at this site with a long-term vision of really possibly using this site for demonstrations of types of other work like bioextraction. There are a lot of nutrients. This site falls between Terry's Creek and Meeting House Creek in Riverhead, one of the highest nutrient pollution-laden areas of the Peconic watershed. And so maybe a series of in-water demonstrations that people can access and see and not be afraid of as they move forward in solving some of these problems. And then we move to wildlife conservation. Again, in our Conservation Management Plan in 22, we developed habitat protection and restoration strategies for key species in the Peconic Estuary, including river otter, terrapin, and horseshoe crab. So these are the 3 that we focused on in our management plan. But we also added the identification of additional species for which habitat restoration and protected strategies are needed. In our wisdom, we knew what we did not know at the time, and so it allows us to really focus on a variety of species. A brief update on what we're doing with wildlife conservation. In 2023, we supported the North American River Otter Survey in the Peconic watershed. I think everybody here is probably familiar that CTOC's been leading this work, Mike Bottini. So we're looking forward to supporting that work and looking at next steps to develop an estuary-wide strategy for the protection, protecting, mitigating, and restoring habitat connectivity and linkages for North American river otter and what that could mean. Land protection, corridors between protected spaces, and potential places where we can facilitate wildlife under roads. 2023 and 2024 commenced our horseshoe crab management work group to develop strategies for horseshoe crab conservation. This includes an assessment of natural and hardened shorelines for potential breeding habitat. A couple of years ago, we carried out a desk-based study of hardened shorelines. That now needs to be ground truthed. Part of that work will mean identifying natural shorelines that can be horseshoe crab breeding grounds. Dr. Matt Sclafani at Cornell Cooperative Extension is doing this work for us. For those of you who don't know, he is the horseshoe crab guru that we go to when we need information on this topic. So excited that he is also leading the ground truthing effort of this. And our next steps, of course, are to identify spawning sites of significance and locations suitable for the establishment of spawner sanctuaries. And by that, we mean retaining natural shorelines. 2024, the American Eel Pass. We have funding set aside to put an eel pass in at Grangeville Falls. We will be working through the Long Island Diadromous Fish Work Group to see the best way to go about doing that. And we carry out a lot of monitoring through our outreach department. We support Kelly McCartan at Suffolk County Community College, who for years has led the alewife abundance surveys that take place in the Peconic system. And Peter Daniel from Hofstra, I would be remiss if I did not mention that he is also a leader in this realm. PEP hosts with CTOC the Wildlife Monitoring Network website. We have a horseshoe crab monitoring site at Squires Pond in Hampton Bays, and we work in partnership with other organizations on the annual River Herring and Eel Survey on the east end of Long Island. And moving into submerged aquatic vegetation, from 1997 to 2002, PEP funded the long-term eelgrass monitoring program. This work was carried out in the field by Cornell Cooperative Extension, and this gave us qualitative data for an annual snapshot of local conditions of our eelgrass beds. For those of you who don't know, eelgrass distribution from 1930 to 2014 saw an 85% decrease in the Peconic Bays. This was fed in part by a wasting disease in the 30s and then further exacerbated by the brown tide events in the 80s and early 90s. But what we have today is a highly diminished eelgrass habitat. In 2022, we started to take a step back and say, you know, we have this qualitative data. What are we doing? Restoration efforts have largely been unsuccessful. We did not want to continue to just fund work for the sake of funding work. And we knew that we needed aerial flyovers to get that quantitative assessment of the eelgrass beds. They were supposed to happen last year. The Canadian wildfires made that impossible. They will be moving forward this year. So we will then have eelgrass distribution from 1930 to 2024 to have a more accurate assessment. 2019, we completed a bio-optical model. We received last year a coastal watershed grant through the national NEP system to take that bio-optical model and make it usable. We can't just look at nutrients. We can't just look at temperatures. We really need to hone in on sites that even hold possibility for restoration. So we're looking at subaqueous groundwater discharge sites. And of course, our aerial survey. So we're all in. We have over $400,000 committed to looking at how we can work both in the state of New York and with the other NEPs and National Park Survey in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region. I'm almost ready to stop. But also coming in 2024, some more community-based efforts, conservation moorings and buoys to minimize vessel interactions we feel is important. We have areas like Sag Harbor where the boats are getting bigger and bigger every year that come into the harbor in the summertime, and this is a problem. We were lucky that the Harbor Committee and the Village of Sag Harbor very recently decided to put a pause on increasing their mooring field, but there's only so long that we can hold that tide. We will be releasing a story map with all of the data that we had taken since 1997 and next steps. And also in 2024 and 5, we're investing $300,000, actually $600,000 over 2 years in what we're calling a Peconic East site. That will be layers of shellfish, kelp, and seagrasses to look at abating effects of climate change like ocean acidification and stormwater in low energy areas. We really want to mimic the success of the Shinnecock Bay restoration site. And I just want to leave you here today with a quote that I think rings true for everybody. I think people that do what we do are increasingly faced with difficult days. Data becomes more difficult. We're bombarded with negative information. One of the penalties of an ecological education is that one lives alone in a world of wounds. Much of the damage inflicted on land is quite invisible to laymen. An ecologist must either harden his shell and make believe that the consequences of science are none of his business, or he must be the doctor who sees the marks of death in a community that believes itself well and does not want to be told otherwise. And so I express gratitude to everybody in this room for everything that everybody does. We are a partnership, and we could not succeed without all of you, and we are grateful that you hold the line with us. Thank you.